Good day, everyone. I hope you're a great day because we'll be having a new topic. Welcome to the Advice on an YouTube channel. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel. And now we'll be having few discussions about what is assessment. But before that, we'll be having first a few introductions about what really assessment is. So talking about assessment, okay, so first thing that we should know that there are three categories of assessment. These are the assessment of learning, assessment for learning, and assessment as learning. So as I first think of these three topics or three categories, um, I have in my mind that these three are just the same because assessment of learning, for learning, and as learning are just the same. But as further study about this, they are not the same. They have their own uniqueness. Okay, they are unique in their own way. So to continue about this, let me share with you my few ideas about assessment of learning. But before that, let me define first what is assessment, right? What is assessment? So assessment is an evaluation or estimation of a nature, quality, or ability of someone or something. Like for example, you are having a top students in your class. So you're able to conclude those that he is a top in your class because you evaluate them. You give them assessment. You assess them. That's why you're able to conclude you have that certain student has the ability. Okay, that is what we call assessment, the evaluation. Okay, so like for example, the teacher will be having a summative test, a quizzes, or a as a whole thing that I mentioned earlier, the evaluation is the whole thing. You're able to evaluate. Sometimes there's also assessment that is evaluate us as teachers on how we're going to evaluate our strategy on teaching based on the performance of our students. Okay? So now let's move on to these three categories of assessment. The assessment of learning is the first one. So assessment of learning is specifically, as you can read, it is the evidence of learning to make judgments on student achievement against goals and standards, or it's called the summative test. So the assessment of learning in Tagalog is called para. I know, so sorry, not para. It is nam. So that means the students able to you evaluate the students what they have learned from a certain topic. That's why it's a summative test. Or the teachers in this part, they'll be having a periodical test, quarterly test, because they sort a lot of topics from the first, the topics of the first quarter, like for example, the first quarter, so they have a lot of topics or lessons. So what they did, they having a summative test as a whole. So this is what we call the assessment of learning. So that means it is used evidence of student learning to make judgments. So that is why you're able to judge your student that they are a top students, they are a number one year class because you're able to give them assessment in the last part of the quarter. So that is what we call assessment of learning. That's very easy, right? Now let's move on to the assessment as learning. So this one, assessment as learning, is reflect on the monitor their progress or personal check. In this part, this is what we call what is this one? This is what we call a formative assessment. It is assessment as learner. Oh, sorry, I forgot that. Assessment as learning reflect on and monitor their progress. That means the students able to know where where they are as a sort of their own progress. That means personal check. Like for example, at this time, the student able to know how to read now. So he able or she able to check himself what is the progress in him in his um in himself. That's it. So they able to reflect. That is what we call assessment as learning. Like for example, some of the teachers give feedbacks, so they are having assessment as learning. So as you, a student, like for example, assessment as learning, like for example, this time, if I am a student, this time I learned this one. And the next day, I should learn also this one. So you are going to have a goal, and then as you can see, you have a personal check. Like in the first quarter, you're a student. Like think this one. You're a student, and then the first part is, oh, I have a low grade in math subject. So what I'm going to do here? So I'm going to move in the second quarter. We're going to check my progress. So I should be having a good strategy in learning this one. So you have, because we have different way on how to learn. So now you make a new strategy in learning. So that's a third quarter. So you able to monitor yourself. That is what we call assessment as learning. Now let's moving on to the assessment as learning. Like I've said earlier, sorry about those things. This is what we call the formative assessment. So talking about the formative assessment, it is assessment for learning, a process by which assessment information is used by teachers to adjust their teaching strategies or the students to adjust their learning strategies. That's it. So first thing we're going to do, the teachers, as you can observe, it is the quizzes that we did in our school. Like, for example, you are discussing today as a teacher, you are discussing certain lesson. After you discuss a certain lesson, you able to monitor, you able to give them an assessment. That's why you give quizzes for you to able to know if your students is able to understand what you're talking about. Like for example of this, sometimes it's gonna be as it works, and sometimes it's gonna be a post assessment. Like for example, we as teachers, we do pre-test or pre-assessment before we're going to give the lesson. And then after that, you are going to discuss your lesson. Then after that, you make a post-assessment or post-test. So that is what we call a formative assessment. This formative assessment is not graded. It is recorded for you to able to know that your students is having a progress. Then what is recorded, teacher? The recorded one is the summative test that is in the assessment of learning. I think that would be all for today. Have a great one. Bye.